Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching NDTV and this is the battle for states where we track elections and their impact closely. Now, tomorrow is an important day for India's parliamentary democracy, specifically on how political parties and their campaigns get funded and how much do voters know about that. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court will begin hearing the electoral bonds case. The Constitution bench will look at two important issues: the legality of anonymous donations to political parties and the violation of citizens' right to information about the funding of political parties. Remember, on October 10th, the Supreme Court had said that it would hear a slew of petitions challenging the electoral bond scheme, including the one by the Association for Democratic Reforms, bringing the focus back to the election funding scheme. As has been reported widely now, Attorney General R. Venkatramani has given the centre's views to the Supreme Court. According to him, the Constitution has not conferred citizens with the fundamental right to know the source of the funds that political parties get. He also said that the matter belonged to the policy-making domain. Mr. Venkatramani has said that the scheme does not impinge upon any existing right of any person. He has said that the electoral bond scheme extends the benefit of confidentiality to the contributor and promotes clean campaign finance, and it also ensures tax compliances. Now, the Congress and other opposition parties have been very critical of this scheme, claiming that it has only benefited the ruling party. The Congress, of course, on its part, plans to use a crowdfunding route to supplement its usual fundraising. What we hear from our sources is that the party has decided to launch a dedicated platform for donations for small donors. Let's go across to my colleague Arvind Gunasekharan first, who is tracking this matter very closely. Arvind, important day for the Supreme Court, important day at the Supreme Court tomorrow. Take us through the details of this case that has been making news for over 5 years now.
So the Supreme Court 5-judge Constitution bench will start hearing pleas challenging the constitutional validity of this electoral bond scheme. So this particular hearing will begin from tomorrow, and then 5-judge bench of Supreme Court will start hearing arguments from the petitioner's side tomorrow. It will begin tomorrow. There are almost 4 petitioners in this case. That also includes NGO, ADR, along with a Communist Party of India, Marxist Communist, has also filed a petition challenging the constitutional validity of electoral bonds, along with Congress leader Jaya Thakur. So in total, 4 petitioners are before Supreme Court challenging the validity of electoral bond scheme, and the petitioners have told Supreme Court that Supreme Court should hear this matter as soon as possible, and that's as soon as possible, and that's why Supreme Court fixed the hearing from tomorrow, because the petitioners have asked Supreme Court to decide on these matters before the 2024 general election. So the main contention of the petitioners in this case is that this particular scheme is skewed or is benefiting only the party that's in power, because it's a very opaque, according to the petitioners, that this is a very opaque system, that some corporates are funding a political party and no one knows which corporate is funding which political party, and that's why they want transparency in this process, and they also want some kind of an accountability, according to the petitioners, because the party which is in power will get to know that which corporate is buying the bonds, and that's why this particular scheme is completely in favor of the party in power, and that's why they want some kind of a transparency. And they have also questioned the very nature of this particular system, saying that this is no way transparent system, that corporates can also use their black money to fund political parties, and this seems to be the main ground on which the political parties have challenged it, or the petitioners have challenged it.
What is the AG
General who has submitted?
Okay, Arvind, so also talk to us about the AG's views on this matter, because he has said that this scheme does not impinge on existing right of any person. And how are political parties looking at this? Because as far as I understand, while the BJP and Congress are top 2 beneficiaries of the electoral bonds, other parties like Trinamool Congress, even DMK, BJD have also benefited. So how are political parties looking at this whole issue?
First, let me answer this very important question about how political parties view this electoral bond scheme. This electoral bond scheme, in a huge way, it has benefited only the party that is in power, that is in BJP. Even we have done stories every year with the audit reports of all political parties, and in every year what we are seeing with the audit reports is that BJP alone has got almost 75%, over 75% of the electoral bonds, and remaining other political parties, including the national parties or the state regional parties, they have managed to get only 25%. So that 75% electoral bonds have gone to BJP, and only remaining 25% 20-25% have come to other political parties, with Congress getting double digit and other regional parties getting in single digit. And that's where several petitions are, that's where several political parties have opposed this particular scheme in toto, saying that this is benefiting only the political party that is in power in center. Coming to the submission of Attorney General in Supreme Court, Attorney General has taken a very nuanced view when it comes to legal side. On legal side, he has said that no particular person, no single individual can claim a fundamental right and move a PAL before Supreme Court, saying that this is infringing his or her fundamental right. And that seems to be the maintainability clause that the Attorney General has raised. Along with that, he has said that this particular scheme is very much transparent because they wanted to bring the political funding through banking channels, and through this particular electoral scheme that they have brought the political funding through banking channels. Earlier it used to be contribution, cash contributions, so black money also did play a role earlier in order to clean black money mess from political funding, and that's why they brought this electoral bond scheme. That seems to be the defense from the government side. So from tomorrow we'll get to know both the arguments of petitioners and also the government side.
Right. Thank you, Arvind, for those interesting details. We also have former CEC OP Rawat with us to help us understand the issue of electoral bonds better. Thank you for speaking with NDTV, sir. So, what is the criticism of this electoral bond scheme, and what is that part of the criticism that you think is fair, and what is that part of the criticism that you think is motivated?
Actually, these bonds were brought in through the money bill in 2017. At that time, Election Commission had raised certain concerns about transparency, about disclosure to the people. All those issues were raised. However, government in Finance Ministry, they explained to the Election Commission that all these issues have been taken into consideration while formulating the scheme. But after the scheme was unveiled, I don't know what transpired because I demitted office. However, this issue of transparency, it is right that citizens don't have a fundamental right to know this. But Right to Information Act comes in the way, because the Right to Information Act protects only the information relating to nation's security, etc., not this part. And therefore, citizens have a right to know about the origin of money being funneled through electoral bonds to various political parties. Now, the issue that ruling party is getting the maximum should not be given so much of importance, because even without electoral bonds, in our country, only ruling party used to get a lion's share of all sources of funding. So that is what is happening even through electoral bonds. And another thing we should consider, that the sources which fund political campaigns, they also having certain stakes and they also play a role in it. So keeping those things in view, maybe there can be a solution. However, tomorrow Honorable Supreme Court is hearing these petitions, so it will not be wise on our part to make a definitive opinion on that.
Right. Mr. Rawat, many experts have suggested that an independent watchdog be there to oversee the electoral bond scheme. You think the EC can be that watchdog, or we need something else?
Certainly, if an independent watchdog is created, it will give more transparency, because people will be satisfied that somebody is there looking after this. Right now, the information of KYC, of purchaser of electoral bonds, is only with the bank, State Bank of India, nobody else. Now, since the bank functions under the Ministry of Finance, Government of India, there is suspicion that this information may be passed on to the ruling party through those channels, and all other parties are in the dark. So those suspicions are there, and once an independent watchdog is there, it will not be, that suspicious.
Right. Mr. Rawat, when you talk about campaign finance or funding of election campaigns, we've often talked about the need for big reforms and transparency. What are your suggestions of ways that one can achieve that? Should cash donations be banned totally?
Actually, you cannot ban cash donations totally, because our country still have a very high percentage of poor. And in a democracy, contribution from anyone, the poorest of the poor, even that is material, because that person is expressing his desire for electing some particular individual or particular party. through donating. So that cannot be banned, but I think it was amended to bring it to 2,000 rupees without any name of the individual. That could be done, that certain limit. Right now, it has been again raised to 20,000, but it can be again reduced. However, there can be many permutations and combinations to formulate something which protects all the stakeholders, because stakeholders are also at risk. Suppose some donations are made to them in violation of the Representation of People Act, then their existence is in jeopardy.
Right.
So all those issues can be kept in mind while formulating something better than the electoral bond, or maybe tweaking with the electoral bond scheme.
Right. Mr. Rawat, coming to the AG's point of view and of course the centre submission, do citizens have the right to know how political parties are funded? As a former CEC, what are your views on that, sir?
Certainly, citizens have a right how the political parties are funded, because that will tell them if there is any quid pro quo, any policy favoritism. Citizens can understand, can know, and then they can decide about voting next time. So it is very important that citizens must know, and this knowledge can come to them through Election Commission disclosing all these details in the public domain.
Right. Mr. Rawat, I was looking at the petitioners here, and ADR, which has challenged the scheme, has flagged that the centre has removed the limit on the amount that companies could donate to political parties through amendments to the Companies Act. Now, this, of course, has paved the way for, according to ADR, unlimited funding from firms. So now they've asked for this principle of anonymity of bond donor to be done away with. Would you agree with that, sir, or does that compromise the integrity of this whole process?
I would say that any company donating should be taking all the shareholders, because they are the masters of that company, in confidence, either by way of annual general meeting disclosure or some other means. Somehow, I believe through newspaper reports that this is not happening. And that is very important, because if the masters don't know where our money is going, then it is something very dangerous and risky. So there should be a disclosure on behalf of the companies to the shareholders as to what kind of money, to whom is it being given, through electoral bonds or through other means. That disclosure should be there.
Thank you very much for speaking to NDTV, sir. Mr. Rawat, that was a former CEC. Remember that the Supreme Court will begin hearing the electoral bonds case tomorrow.